I just pulled off to the side of the road here. I was driving to Moline Lake, and most of today was just completely clouded over. Couldn't see a single mountain. And it's really only in the past 10 minutes or so that it started to see some blue sky and the sun started to come out. And on my way back, driving along this road, I was so distracted by looking at this mountain. Look at that. The flurries all morning have put such a beautiful dusting of snow on those mountain peaks, and oh, it just looks so beautiful. So beautiful. Trying to figure out a composition. I walk down more to the lake and you sort of get to see a little bit more of the mountain, but there's not really anything there. Whereas just off to the side here, there's a whole bunch of rock boulders, and I was thinking maybe I could sort of have one of those peek into the frame or something like that. But yeah, I'm gonna walk around and see what I can find. So for my first composition, I think I'm actually just going to, I'm sort of right off the trail here, so pretty accessible, and I've sort of tried to get my tripod in really close. Originally I had it further back with shooting at longer focal length, but right now I am sort of as close as I can, and I'm shooting at 16 millimeters. So this is roughly what it looks like. What I'm doing is I've sort of tried to get right up onto that rock, and it's sort of really interesting because that sort of rock is exposed, but it's got a nice layer of snow on top, as well as snow on the left side as well. So it's sort of this pillowy surface as the foreground. And then the trees meet the mountain, and then you can sort of imagine how the lake, although it's covered in snow, how the lake sort of winds through there. So in terms of camera settings, as mentioned, I was at 16 millimeters, shooting at f8 and aperture priority on tripod. It's really calm, nothing's moving, so no worries about shutter speed. But what I am doing is focus stacking. So because my foreground is so close to me, I focused on that first, got my shot, and then I focused onto the trees in the background, and I focused on that. And I don't think I need more depth than that. I'm shooting at 16 millimeters, so it's sort of getting that really close foreground and then off towards infinity for the background. So take that and see what else I can get here. I think hopefully I'll be able to find another composition I like. So I don't have too much space here to work with, but I had just come from the trail down there and trying to just get a higher vantage point, and I'm shooting in pretty much the same general direction as that previous shot, and what I've noticed is that little melted area that runs through the lake provides a nice leading line. And when I was framing it up here at just under 35 millimeters, the sort of bend in the lake itself has created a nice secondary leading line, so it takes you off to the trees on the right side and then brings you back across to the mountains and then off into the distance. And because of that fog, it's a little bit sort of off into nothingness, which is pretty interesting. I think the only problem I'm seeing with this so far is that sort of melt line that runs through the center is not really sort of as contrasted as I would want it to be, and I think that just has to do with the very fresh layer of snow that it's receiving from this morning. So I might try play around with that a little bit more when I load it into Lightroom or Photoshop, just to emphasize it just a little bit more. But pretty simple horizontal composition, and got some light leaking in from the right side, from the sun peeking through every now and then, but it doesn't look like it's too much dynamic range for a single shot. So I think this one works as well. So now I've switched to my telephoto lens, and once again I'm shooting the same direction, but I feel like it looks pretty different. So for starters, this is a vertical orientation, and I'm shooting at about 135 millimeters. So if you can see those rocks there from the rock fall, I'm sort of shooting through them. So they're the foreground, and I'm sort of trying to use them to frame the mountain in the background. And so the mountain in the background is really that focus because I couldn't see it earlier. And so once again, I am focus stacking. So especially with the telephoto lenses, it will really alter your depth of field. Of course, there's a lot of other factors that play, but generally speaking, when you're using a telephoto lens, your depth of field is that much shallower. So it's perhaps even more important to focus stack for the foreground and the background if that's something that you want. I don't really want the rocks or the mountain out of focus, so definitely going to focus stack here and then merge them back on the computer. So although I haven't exactly found a composition I like using these beautiful mountains, which is what made me stop at the side of the road, I still think it's interesting that I was able to create 3 different compositions looking in generally the same scene. And that's always a little bit of a fun challenge. I just sort of pulled off at the side of the road, walked down here, and I just looked around and I found some interesting compositions that I could make. And I think especially as a series of those 3 images, when you put them together, it makes it really interesting. And here in the Rockies, it's so easy to go to those obvious viewpoints and take those beautiful shots. And they're popular for a reason, because they are so beautiful. And I will definitely be going to those and still shooting those. But at the same time, it's very interesting to just come out here, no one else is around, and just make a photo. And so I still want to be able to sort of do that and balance both of those, getting those obvious photographs in the beautiful light, but also finding interesting compositions in whatever the weather.